You're Latch 3. You can say hello.
Hello and good morning, Jeff. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Absolutely excited to talk with you because I'll tell you what, this is coming out at the absolute perfect time because classic rock radio has finally adopted hair bands and they're playing them over and over again. And this fits right along with it because the younger generation needs to know the story. You're there, Jeff.
Yeah, it's wild, right? Like these songs have actually lasted 40 years now, right? Or, 40 to 30 to 40 years. So, and they're not going away. So, yeah, it's awesome. Like, it's crazy to me that it's classic rock. It makes me feel old, but.
But, even though when I listen to it today, maybe this is what my parents went through. It doesn't feel old. I'm still excited to hear it every time it pops on.
Yeah, I mean, same with me. Like, and there's just so many memories attached to all of it, too. So it just. Yeah, it's awesome that these songs actually do hold up. That's the thing about the scene, though, right? The musicianship was really great beyond just the insane look and the antics that the guys were up to. They were actually very good musicians, most of them.
Yeah. Well, that whole entire L.A. music scene, I mean, my God. I mean, if you weren't in a club that night, it's like, okay, what's wrong with your band? Okay, let's form a new band. Let's go. I mean, look at what happened with Guns N' Roses and L.A. Guns. I mean, everybody was just getting together.
Yeah, it was a crazy scene. Like, I moved out to LA in '89, and the Sunset Strip, you couldn't go on the weekends. Like, it was just so crowded. It's hard to picture it today because you go to, now it's very mellow. But back then, the sidewalk was 20 people wide all the way for a whole mile section of the strip. Right? It was just insane. It was like Mardi Gras. But hair metal Mardi Gras.
Is there a side of your want and need for music to go back to those days of rock where it was about the drugs, it was about the women, or is it's happening just people aren't talking about it because it's not good PR?
I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, everyone keeps it so low key now. It's a different era where you're not bragging about it like people used to, right? But I hope to a degree some of it's still going on because. That was my attraction into doing. I'd say the Dirt, the Motley Crue movie was that we read that book. I wasn't the biggest, hair metal fan and Motley Crue fan. I liked Motley Crue, but when I read that book, it just felt like, oh my God, I'm sitting right next to this right now as it's happening with the Jackass guys, right? So it just felt very much like we were living in that same realm. So.
I experienced The Dirt so many times, and to this day, I'll still go back and I'll watch it. And the reason why is that it's not that I'm searching for something, it's just you make me feel like I'm part of that story.
That's cool. It was really important to me to get the era right, and especially, like the 80s, to make it look right. It could so easily have gone to parody, right? Like, you've got such a crazy look back then, but when you start putting wigs on actors and stuff, it can easily start to look like a bad Saturday Night Live skit. Mm-hmm. But it was really a concern of mine to make it feel right and authentic. So thank you for that. I appreciate you.
Nothing But a Good Time is the authentic stories. I mean, you actually sit down with those who have lived the life and continue to live the life. They're still touring and they're doing it together.
Yeah, for sure. We interviewed like a lot of musicians, but we also interviewed and some of the best interviews are like the managers, like Alan Niven, who was not only Great White's manager back in the day, but he was Guns N' Roses manager. So he's managed two of the hardest bands to manage in the history of rock and roll. And so he's been to hell and back twice. So he had the incredible stories. Doc McGee, who was Motley Crue, yes, Bon Jovi, and Skid Row's manager. He had great stories. Everybody, like everyone who lived this scene, it was crazy.
The culture that came with hair metal bands. I mean, I had long hair back then. I've still got very long hair today. I just don't put the mousse in it like I used to, nor do I wear the dark makeup. But man, even though I was on the radio and people couldn't see me, I was still living the lifestyle.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was a wild looking scene. Like, you don't see that anymore. And everybody.
Why wasn't Duran Duran looked upon as being a hair band? Because, I mean, they were just as cocky.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even like the term hair band, right? Yeah, because everybody had outrageous hair back then. We called it the uncensored story of 80s hair metal, just because that's the category that people know it as. So I don't, personally refer to it as hair metal, but I mean, I guess I do. I subconsciously, that's just it's kind of a bad name for what the scene was, but it's a name that people know it as. So
you put some focus on Quiet Riot, and I'm glad you did that because I don't want that band to go away. There's too much history in that band, and it's not my fault that radio didn't play the songs, but by God, they put a mark on music.
They did, right? Like seeing that old Randy Rhoads footage. Randy Rhoads was the guitarist in Quiet Riot in the early days, and it's very raw and awesome. Like you can totally see him as the next Prodigy right after Eddie Van Halen. So.
Wouldn't you say that what you've done here is you've created a family tree that shows the connections of all bands? I mean, people are going to be shocked by that, about how all of these guys somehow, some way got together.
Yeah, right. Like there's a whole, and we didn't even. It goes deeper than even everything we were able to show, just because there's so many people we didn't get to talk to. But yeah, it's actually a smaller world than it seems. Like it was fun to do this and learn. Like Tom Zutaut, right? The guy who's sort of the A&R guy who discovers Motley Crue, also kind of discovers Dokken and Great White, yes. And then Guns N' Roses. He's connected to all of it. So,
do you feel like a historian right now? And the reason why I bring that up is because I've been blessed to talk with a lot of these bands, and I feel like that it's our calling to preserve these stories so that 25, 30, 50 years from now, they're there for the next generation. Do you feel like a historian?
That sounds pretty intellectual for me to describe me, but I do in a way, right? Like just having talked to these guys and made a connection with everybody I interviewed. Like I really love this scene now. There's some great people involved in it. So yeah, and it was really important to me to get these stories right. And we were able to talk to Stephen Riley, who was the drummer of Wasp, and L.A. Guns, who passed away recently, and then same with Jack Russell, the singer of Great White. Got outrageous stories and really vibrant stories of the life. And I'm so glad to have got them on tape before these guys passed away. So it sucks, but it's also, nice that these stories are preserved now in a documentary.
In visual form. This isn't just sitting there listening to the radio or listening to something on a streaming outfit. You're giving us the vision, which means it's going to have a lasting picture. Yeah, and digging up just awesome archival. Like there was a lot of buried gems in there that we uncovered. So hopefully people see it for the first time. Wow. You got to come back to this show anytime in the future, Jeff, because I know where your heart is, and it's about sharing stories. And God dang, man, I want to hear them.
Anytime, buddy. Anytime. I love to relive it. So,
well, you be brilliant today, okay, sir?
I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.